get a drink. We might be here a while. Hi, welcome, come on in. My name is Aoife and today I am sharing with you what I am absolutely certain is my biggest book haul yet. This is the start of the book haul and it is all of the books that I have acquired in any way in the time that I have been back in Ireland for the last 2 weeks. And when we've seen all of these, we're going to cut back to Berlin and I'm going to show you what I got before I came back here or what I missed while I was back in Ireland. So there are 19 books just in this section alone that we need to get to. There is no time to mess around. Let's get going. First one up is Aisling in the City by Sarah Breen and Emer McLeod. I have already read this, but this is a copy from the publisher Gale Books itself. They sent me this absolutely stunning package with some chocolates, with some vitamin C serum for your face, with some postcards, with some pencils, and I fell in love with it. Also, something that I have fallen in love with is these gorgeous green sprayed edges. This size fits the books that I have got over in Berlin, whereas the book that I have got over in Berlin right now fits the size of the books that I've got on the shelves behind me. So I'm going to do a little swap of the two of those, bring this over, and then bring back the other one when I'm back in Ireland next. Next up is Circle of Friends by Maeve Binchy. This was gifted to me by Charlotte from Coiny Reads. I have already read this one. It was one of the reads for the Irish Readathon back in March of last year, but I fell in love with it. This was my very first ever Maeve Binchy book and I just became obsessed with it. This follows Benny and Eve, who have been childhood friends. They've known each other since they were about 10 years old, and it's now following them as they go to university for the first time, as they're moving into Dublin City for the first time, and kind of their first tastes of adult life, meeting people from new socioeconomic backgrounds, from new upbringings, and how that kind of shapes and pictures the world that they've grown up in and how different it is now. Another gift that I got from Charlotte was The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren. Christina Lauren could tell me to jump and honestly I wouldn't even say how high, I would just start. I love the two of them and I know that this is such a phenomenal book. I've already listened to the audiobook, but I did want to have a kind of a physical copy, so this one went straight onto my wish list when I had finished it, and Charlotte very kindly gifted it to me for my birthday. It follows Jess and Riva. Jess is a single mother and she's getting back onto the dating scene with the help and the coaxing of one of her best friends who is a romance writer, which I absolutely adored about the story. Riva is in charge of a dating site and a dating service where everyone is matched together based on how compatible their DNA is. So with the help of Fizzy, Jess signs up for this dating service and it turns out that she and Riva are a almost identical match. They're almost at 100%. So to boost her a little bit of popularity for the app, Jess and Riva decide to fake date. But of course, fake dating never really lasts that long. A birthday gift from my friend Caitlin was Beach Read by Emily Henry. This was Emily Henry's adult debut and it follows January and Gus, who are two rival authors who write in very different genres. January writes very happy, very uplifting, literary women's fiction, whereas Gus writes kind of thrillers, darker books, and they're both going through writer's block. They're both living in these little beach huts right beside each other, so they decide to spice things up by swapping genres. January is going to write the next really dark, really intense thriller, and Gus is going to try his hand at writing a very happy, very uplifting love story. While they go out and research each other's stories and take ideas from each other, they also start to discover feelings for each other. I'm going to show the two of these together only because they are both part of a series. I bought one for myself as part of a voucher, and I got the other one as a gift from one of my best friends, Margaret, for my birthday. By Heartstopper comics. So I got the second volume as a present to myself. I used a voucher when I was down in my local Easons. They only had 2 and 4, they didn't have 3. So for some reason on the day I just said, right, I'm just gonna get number 2 and I'll start building my collection a little bit slower. In my little gift basket from my friend Margaret was Heartstopper volume 4. So all I'm missing now is number 3. Thank you to Victoria from What Victoria Read, who has given me volume 1 to kickstart the collection. And I'm all ready to go. I just need Alice to give me the final volume 5 and my entire life, the complexion is complete. Another gift from my friend Margaret was How to Kill Your Family by Bella Mackie. This is just so intriguing because who hasn't had that little inside voice of, I will genuinely put you in the ground if you even breathe in my direction. When you're looking at like your siblings or your parents, or if they just rub you up the wrong way or catch you on a wrong day, we've all done it. I don't think that this is necessarily a self-help book as to how to actually put your family in the ground, but I have got a feeling that it's about a character who accidentally murders her family and how she's going to react to that and the outcome of that. I know that Bella Mackie is a very popular figure in the UK. I think this is her debut novel, and I'm so excited to see how it looks. Next up is a bit of a curveball and a little bit of a personal one. This is Lola Comes Home by Claudine Cullimore. She's a very, very underrated novelist, but she's my mom's first cousin. And I was in my local grocery store this morning, and I was actually returning some of the books that you would have seen me unhauling. And this just was on the shelves, and I thought, okay, I've never read any of Claudine's books before. I know that she has got 2 of them, and I'm not even sure what this one is about, but I just knew that because it had that little family connection. I asked my grandmother, she didn't have any of Claudine's books in the house. My mom doesn't have any of the books in the house, but I wanted to read it. I thought it would just be a little nice reminder of my family when I am back in Berlin and that I can dip into this. Next up is 32 Words for Field by Manchen Mangan. This is a kind of look at Irish culture, the Irish language, how we give names, how we give these really strange names to things across the country. Every field in the place that I grew up has got a specific name. My dad told me that when I showed him the book that I had gotten. And I'm always interested in books that are about Irish culture, about Ireland, and specifically about the Irish language. I am a fluent Irish speaker myself, so any kind of connection that I can get to that, especially from having left Ireland, I don't get as much of an opportunity to speak it anymore. Getting that little bit of reminder of home is always going to be a hit with me. Next up is Happy Fat by Sophie Hagen. Sophie is a Danish comedian. I absolutely adore her. She's really body positive. She's really staunchly feminist. She is absolutely hilarious. And as soon as I saw this in Eason's, I just knew that this one was going to come home with me. This book is going to chronicle her body positivity movement, how she feels about her body, if her images of her body have changed. But also I know that there are a couple of essays from other people who have also got a lot to say about how they see themselves, maybe if their self-confidence or their body images have changed over the last few years. And I'm hoping that this is going to give me a little bit of the same confidence too. Next are 2 that might surprise you, but I have got Hook, Line and Sinker and also My Killer Vacation by Tessa Bailey. You'll have seen in my mid-July vlog that I read and absolutely adored It Happened One Summer, which took me by surprise because Tessa Bailey isn't usually for me. When I finished that and I saw Hook, Line and Sinker in Easton and I had the voucher with me, I thought, you know what? I'm going to give it a try. I've heard a couple of mixed things about it, and at the moment it's my current read and I am 130 pages in and I'm really enjoying it. But I will say that I don't think it's at the heights of It Happened One Summer yet. This is about Fox and Hannah, who know each other through Brendan and Piper from It Happened One Summer. Hannah is Piper's sister and Brendan and Fox work on the same boat together. Hannah and Fox have been emailing and texting each other back and forth ever since Hannah left Westport, and now she's coming back to the town as part of a film shoot or a video shoot that she's working on at the moment. They're looking for a kind of picturesque seaside town, and Hannah instantly comes with Westport. I am so excited to see how their chemistry is going to build, how they're going to get along with each other, and if it's going to be as steamy as It Happened One Summer. Then we've got My Killer Vacation, which is the group read for the rom-comathon, which is starting on the 22nd of August. Don't forget to go and check out everything that you need to know. This one follows Taylor, who goes on a holiday to Cape Cod in Massachusetts with her brother. They book an Airbnb, and as they get in there, they discover a dead body in the living room. Not exactly how you would hope that a holiday is going to start. So Taylor teams up with a local bounty hunter in the area to try and figure out what actually happened. This is kind of a part rom-com, kind of a part thriller mystery book. And I'm really excited to see how those 2 genres are going to match together, because it's not 2 that I would usually marry in my head. But if it's done well, I'm really intrigued. Next up is The Housekeeper and the Professor by Yoko Ogawa. This was a gift to me by Emma from Drinking by Myself. And this is one of her favorite books of the last couple of years. And she spoke about it so highly and she sold it to me so well that I instantly put a copy of it onto my wish list. This is a Japanese translation and it follows the housekeeper who goes to the professor house every morning. He is a retired mathematics teacher, but his memory is absolutely gone. He can barely remember anything from the last 8 minutes, so every time that the housekeeper goes to his house to clean up, she basically has to reintroduce herself to him every single day. It also chronicles them discovering each other, finding out some more stuff about each other, and just how a connection can still be developed even when you've gone through so much hardship like this. Next up are the 6 books that you will have seen me picking up in the Dubray Personal Shopper experience, and I cannot recommend that highly enough. If you want to check out what the experience is like, go and check out my thoughts on it in the video that I made. But big surprise to everyone, because big surprise to me. First book that I picked up was The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Quiva just sold this to me so much that even though it's been a BookTube darling, a BookTok darling, a Bookstagram, basically everywhere on the book community, I was never really that hype about reading it until Quiva sold it to me. This is the perfect introduction to Madeline Miller's book, she has told me. It is a Greek myth retelling of the myth of Achilles, but told from Patroclus' point of view, and that is something that has very heavily intrigued me. She also told me that it has got LGBT references and LGBT themes running throughout the book, which is something that I absolutely aim to read every single time I pick up a book, so that was definitely a keeper for me. Next up is Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. Michelle was born in the US but is of Korean heritage. Her mother is from Korea. And before the events of this book, her mother has passed away from an illness. There are some descriptions of Michelle's mother's illness and how it was like for not just her mother, but also for the rest of the family. But when Michelle's mother passes away, Michelle decides that she's going to go back and take a look at her Korean heritage, try and connect with that a little bit more, through the basis of the food that she's going to eat. Something that I definitely wanted to come out of that experience was books that had really highly references to food, and she said that this was the perfect way to go. So this is a non-fiction book that has got food in it that's not a cookbook, and I am genuinely really excited to see what this is about. I've seen so many people have been reading this, have been checking this one out, and I'm kind of interested to see what the hype is about for myself. Next up is I Feel Bad About My Neck by Nora Ephron. Now, I worship the ground that Nora Ephron walks on. She is one of my favourite directors. You've Got Mail is by far one of my favourite films, despite the slightly problematic ending. But it was when I read the back that I absolutely got hype about this book. This has got little kind of quips and quotes that Nora would have made throughout her life, such as, if the shoe doesn't fit in the shoe store, it's never going to fit. When your children are teenagers, it's important to have a dog so someone in the house is happy to see you. I'm just so excited to read this book that kind of came from her mind itself and figure out what her life was like. I think it's got a lot of descriptions about womanhood, about aging, and I'm so excited to read it. Next up is Woman Eating by Claire Coda. This is a vampire story that, if you took the vampirism out of it, would just read like a straight contemporary literary fiction book. This is following Lydia, who is a vampire, but unlike the vampires in Twilight, actually genuinely needs blood to survive. So she goes out in search of pig's blood every time that she is hungry, but this is getting harder and harder to come across in the UK. There are, I have been told, some descriptions of hunger that are kind of reminiscent of having an eating disorder. So if that is something that is going to open a couple of doors for you, it might not be the perfect book to read. But if it's something that you feel comfortable with reading, I think this is going to be a perfect read. Next up is Everything You Love Is Going to Die by Daniel Sloss. Daniel is a comedian from Scotland and he comments a lot about relationships. I know, for example, that his show Jigsaw has been single-handedly responsible for about at least 20,000 breakups and or divorces worldwide. This book is going to be a kind of a look about relationships as a whole. Not just romantic ones, not just sexual ones, but familial ones, friendships, very platonic friendships, platonic relationships are all going to get a look in here. And I am so excited to see how that's going to translate from being on stage with a microphone in his hand to sitting in front of a computer and typing. I am really intrigued to see how this is going to go and I cannot wait to pick this one up. Final book for now is Fingersmith by Sarah Waters. This is a lesbian love story that is set in Regency times. This is, as I was told, the perfect introduction to Sarah Waters' work, not even Tipping the Velvet, which is her first book. I was told that this is the one that you should go to if you're really looking to figure out what her writing is like, what her style is like, if you want to get a little bit to know her. This is about Sue Trinder, who was orphaned at birth and has been under the care of Mrs. Suxby, which is the weirdest name I've ever heard. But it's also about her life as an orphaned child and how she settles in with the family here and people that she meets as she grows up. I am really excited to see what all the hype about Sarah Waters is about. If I try and pick all of those up, I'm genuinely going to put my back out, but that is so far 19 books that I have just had come to my possession over the last 2 weeks. So let's very quickly stream over to Berlin and see what we've missed out on over there. It feels so weird not to start this as I usually start it, but we'll get there. This is the second half of the aforementioned book haul that I have kind of accumulated over the entire months of June and the first half of July. There's a couple of these that I got before I went back to Ireland. There's a couple of them that arrived while I was in Ireland, but let's take a catch up. Also, you're going to hear the fan on in the background. That is because it is, no kidding, about 700 degrees today. First up are the two later books in the Crazy Rich Asians series. So you've got China Rich Girlfriend and you have got Rich People Problems. I have already got a copy of Crazy Rich Asians. I kind of gifted these to myself after my final dental extraction. When I knew all of the stress was over, I had a voucher from an extra dental insurance that I had taken out and I thought, you know what, this is probably a good way to do it. Next are two books that I gifted myself for my birthday. So we've got The Summer Job by Lizzie Dent and we have got Weather Girl by Rachel Lynn Solomon. I've already read both of them. I only read this as a ebook and I read this as a NetGalley copy. I obsessed over this and I absolutely adored it, and I knew once I was finished with it, I knew that I wanted a proper final copy of it, but I had never been able to find one over here in Berlin. It's like hen's teeth trying to find books in English sometimes. But when I was in Dussmann on my birthday, I finally found the magic copy and I brought it home with me. Also, there was Weather Girl by Rachel Lynn Solomon. As I said, I already read this. I read this as a buddy read with my friend Hilary from Melted Books. I read this as an e-copy and I just fell in love with it. Especially fell in love with Russell, who is the male main character here. This is about Ari and Russell, who work together in a local TV station. Ari is the weather girl and Russell is a sports presenter, sports commentator. They realize that their two bosses are making work a little bit difficult for everybody. The bosses have recently divorced and everything is a little bit tenuous between the two of them. Russell and Ari decide to play the parent trap and get Seth and Torrance back together, but it turns out that there might be some feelings between Ari and Russell too. Next up is Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren. This was gifted to me by Daniela from Only for a Page. I love Christina Lauren. I have already got another book by them already in this book haul, but I absolutely love them. Everything that they have written so far and that I have read has kind of turned to gold for me. I'm not entirely sure what this one is about, but I'm going to go into it blind. And I just know that anything by Christina Lauren, I'm going to love it anyway. Next up is One True Love by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Justine from I Should Read That gifted this to me for my birthday. This is one from the Taylor Jenkins Reid back catalogue. It's not necessarily one of her historical fictions that you will have known from like Evelyn Hugo or from Daisy Jones and the Six or from Malibu Rising, but I am really excited to see how she works with this kind of literature and see what that one is like. This follows Emma and Jessie, who are high school sweethearts and have gotten married, and a year after their wedding, Jessie is on a helicopter that disappears. Emma obviously is distraught, but after a certain amount of time, she decides to go along with the rest of her life, put herself back out there, and maybe love again. When she and her new fiancé Sam are planning their wedding, Jessie walks through the front door. He is alive, he is well, and technically he and Emma are still married. Next is I Heart Forever by Lindsay Kelk. This is the 7th and penultimate book in the I Heart series. It was gifted to me by Cora from Tea Party Princess. And I am obsessed with this series. I think I talk about it more than any other series on this channel, so you know that this one is going to be a hit. This follows Angela right as she is going through a whole lot of changes in her life. Her work life is a little bit in turmoil. She has just discovered something that's going to make her personal life a lot more exciting. But her husband is already gone off on a trip and he is about 1,500 kilometers away when she discovers everything. Next is another Taylor Jenkins Reid book. This is Forever Interrupted and it was gifted to me by Michelle from Michelle's Library. All her gift note said was, "This book made me sob, you need to read it." So that has me sold instantly. But I'm not entirely sure what this one is about. I know that I'm going to enjoy it because it's a Taylor Jenkins Reid book, but I feel like this is one that I'm going to go into pretty much blind. I'm not going to take too much heed onto the cover and I'm just going to go in and read it. Next up is the first book in the Heartstopper series. This was gifted to me very kindly by Victoria from What Victoria Read. Heartstopper is seriously doing the rounds at the moment. Everybody is reading it, everybody is loving it, and I am absolutely on that hype train. This follows Nick and Charlie, who are two boys in secondary school in the UK. When Charlie joins Nick's rugby club, they start to grow a little bit closer together, and Nick is starting to make questions about who he is and who he really loves. Next up is All Our Hidden Gifts by Caroline O'Donoghue. I've read a couple of Caroline's books before, but this is her YA debut. It's very witchy, it's got tarot vibes, it's got a sapphic romance in it, and I am super excited to get trying this one. I read a sample chapter of it from Walker Books on NetGalley and it was enthralling, so I know that I'm going to have a great time here. This one also was very kindly gifted to me by Shannon from 155 Books. Finally are 3 books that I gifted myself again on my birthday. All 3 books in the Written in the Stars series by Alexandria Bellflour. I have already read Written in the Stars and I absolutely loved it, but I knew that I wanted a little bit more. Myself and Ellie from Earl Grey Books are going to read the second book in the series, which I believe is Hang the Moon, and I am so excited for the 2 of us to sit down and discuss it properly. There we have it. The entire collection of books that has just recently come onto my TBR. Have any of those caught your interest? Which one do you think I should start with first? Don't forget to like and subscribe because I have new videos up every week. Now, get on out of here.